Hey guys, pickleball paddles are getting pretty pricey these days. This Pro 4 from Yola retails for $280. But meanwhile, you can get this copycat from Temu for $20. But should you buy a paddle off of Temu? Let's talk about that. All right, now I'm sure a lot of you are already familiar with what Temu is, but basically it's a place where you can buy a lot of products at a very low price point. Now, I was browsing the other day just for fun, and I happened to see that they had a Agassi copycat on sale for 20 bucks. So I decided, I've always been curious, let's just buy it and make a video out of it. Now, originally, I was going to read out the product description for you, but unfortunately, when I went back to look up the product again, it actually sold out and is no longer listed on Temu. But from what I remember, this is a professional Agassi paddle with a reactive honeycomb core and performance foam. So it was on sale and it sounded good enough, so I figured, why not just buy this? But the only thing about Temu is after I did buy it is that it takes like 2 weeks. It usually takes a while for Temu products to arrive. So it did take 2 weeks for this paddle to finally arrive. And normally if you go through a normal company, it only takes like 3 to 5 business days. All right, now let's finally talk about the paddle itself. So from a distance, it actually looks kind of similar to the real thing. But it's when you get closer is when you notice all the flaws. So down here, it does say Agassi, but flip it around. Now it says Tiger, and it says Tiger on the edge guards as well. And it also has the USA Pickleball approved stamp. But the thing to know is that this stamp actually doesn't mean anything. Factories do not care, or nor do they check if your paddle is actually approved. As long as you pay them money and tell them to put that stamp on, they will just do it. So this stamp actually doesn't mean anything. And this paddle right here is actually not pickleball approved or sorry, not USA Pickleball approved. So you actually can't use this in a tournament. Now, other than the changes in the graphics, if you put the two paddles side by side, you'll notice that this Temu knockoff isn't even an elongated paddle. It's actually a hybrid. So the actual Pro 4 is longer and it's actually wider than this. And in terms of like swing weights and twist weights, for the real one, we got 118 and 6.20, while for this one, we got 110 and 5.80. Now, the worst part about this paddle is actually starts at the handle. So it's really square and blocky. But if you press down right here, you'll notice that there's actually exposed polymer in here. And that tells us that this isn't a thermoformed or a unibody paddle at all. This is actually a Gen 1 cold press paddle. But nevertheless, I still went out and hit it anyways. And yeah, it's just a Gen 1 control paddle. Now, 20 bucks for a Gen 1 cold press paddle with a raw carbon fiber surface isn't a bad deal. But the thing is, you can just pay a bit more money and get a much better paddle with much better technology inside that's more modern. So I really wouldn't waste your money buying something like this. Now, obviously, this is a really small sample size because I only bought one paddle from Temu. But to be fair, when I am reviewing paddles, I usually only get one paddle from a company anyways. Now, I have seen posts from people that have bought paddles from Temu and Alibaba and said that their clone paddles have played exactly like the Pro 4s and they're made in the same factory. And while this could be true, I don't want to be spending $20 every time and rolling the dice on whether or not I get an actual clone of the paddle or not. And also, even if I do manage to get a clone of a Gen 3 paddle, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to play like a Pro 4. There are other factors during the manufacturing, like if you don't use the right temperature, if you're not heating for long enough, if you're not using the right type of foam, even if you do copy the design that they have laid out, if you don't do it properly, you're just going to end up with a dud and it's not going to play anything like a Yola paddle. Now, $20 is a lot cheaper than $280, but personally, I don't think it's worth it to gamble $20 every time for a chance to get the actual thing. And beyond that, there are other factors like it did take 2 weeks to ship, there's no warranty, there's no customer support, and you can't use these paddles in tournaments either. Now, if I thought that you could actually get a good deal on Temu or Alibaba, I honestly would have said it. That's how this channel started. I was comparing expensive versus cheap paddles. But in this case, I think it's better to either get the real thing or get some of the other cheaper alternatives that I've already talked about. For example, there's the Luz Cannon, the Paddle Shop Planker, and the Schreikel Aura Sport. Now, not all of these are approved, and they're not all one-to-one clones of the Pro 4 paddles. I think they're really similar, but you can kind of feel that they are budget versions of these Gen 3 paddles from Yola. Now, If you're just looking to have fun and for rec play, these are pretty good at an affordable price and you are buying from an actual company. Now, $280 is a lot of money, but there are overhead costs that we as consumers do need to consider. For example, there's the R&D that goes into developing the technology for the paddles, there's the marketing, paying for pros. So while we see this as just a big hunk of plastic, at the end of the day, there are some overhead costs that we do need to consider. Now, if you are a player on a budget, for a lot of these bigger companies out there, there are already several smaller companies that are doing similar technology in their paddles as the bigger ones. So sometimes they'll be getting budget alternatives that might not be a one-to-one replica, but even in some other cases, there are some brands that are doing it even better than the bigger companies. But if you are curious about these companies, subscribe to my channel because it's something that I do love to cover. But in conclusion, there are a lot of places you can buy pickleball paddles from at high prices and low prices, but Temu should not be one of them.